Today's episode is brought to you by Andy Bovender, the founder of the Bovender team out of the Carolinas. Now, him and his team have helped more than 5,000 clients, meaning their systems and processes are dialed in. So if you have somebody who's been thinking about making a move to or from that area, and you want them to have a superior level of service, they are the team to call. Speaking of referrals, Scott Weilers is my guest today, and his book of business has been built on referrals. So much so that 99% of his business is agent referrals, and he shares his strategies around that. Next up is the Inner Circle Group. It is a private group of a handful of past guests and a few members, and we meet 2 times a month to talk shop and, more importantly, build relationships for those referrals. To learn more about that, scroll down and click the link in the description below. And as always, I'm your host and San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler. Scott, what's up, man? Thanks for doing this today.
Absolutely. Good morning. Great to be here.
I'm excited, man. It's kind of cool the way that you and I first connected, because I feel like it all intertwines nicely. But I had Bob Berg on, who's the author of The Go-Giver, outstanding book if people haven't read it. And then I sent that out the email goes out to, I think, about 15,000 agents, and you pinged me back, and right away we started a conversation, because it's obviously so close to near and dear to your heart. Before we dive into that, and before we dive into your network and your networking, which I want to unpack, if you could, in a couple sentences, just get everybody up to speed as to who you are and what you do.
Okay. Scott Willers. I am a Compass agent in North Lake Tahoe, California and Nevada. Grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area with a family home here in Tahoe, lifetime connection, Bay Area to Tahoe. And real estate is my third and final career. I ran a chain of ski and snowboard shops for 15 years by accident. I got picked up hitchhiking by the owner of said ski shop after I had moved to Tahoe for just one summer after college graduation. My buddies and I were going to mess around before going back to the Bay Area and diving into the real world. They all left. I stayed. And then my wife and I ran the oldest grocery store on the oldest marina on Lake Tahoe before diving into real estate. And that's what got me to today.
That is so wild. One of my really dear friends, Clint, who I've known now for well over 2 decades, he lived in Redding and hitchhiked down to San Francisco for a concert and was like, this place is cool. I'm going to stay.
Sure. Yeah, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, who knew that one hitchhike ride was going to forever alter the course of my life to where I am today, married, children, mortgage, living in Tahoe. I had an epiphany moment this past year in 2024 when I had the realization that I had now lived in Tahoe 30 years in May of 2024, after that fateful decision to, move to Tahoe for just one summer after graduation.
That's very cool. It's funny. I've lived in California now longer than half my life. I grew up in Connecticut, and I knew that I wanted to live in a city. Basically, within like a 3-month period, decided to make a move, found myself here, sight unseen, never had visited California before, and just was like, here I am. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, as we get older, it's amazing as we ponder the decisions we made from the past and how they are reflective and how they've shaped today.
Yeah. I'm so jealous of that person I was, the piss and vinegar and just the leaps that I would take blindly. I miss that.
Well, you know what they say, youth wasted on the young. And that statement gets truer and truer every day.
Dude, it really does. But let's circle back to the Go-Giver, because
Sure.
that's why we connected. And you right away you emailed me and you're like, oh my God, that's wild. That's literally on my vision board. Have you been completely neglecting your newsletter, social media, or any of your outbound marketing? If so, I have a solution for you. With little to no commitment, a virtual assistant can jump in and help you in those areas you just don't have the time for. For more information about hiring a virtual assistant, go ahead and follow the link in the description below.
Right. So, as a realtor, as you might imagine, I get spammed with agent emails, and then vendor emails. You know, hundreds every day. Maybe not that many, but I read
No,
yours
it's
and
100.
I read yours and it resonated with me. I didn't know you from a hot rock, but the content of the email and everything in it just spoke to me. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take a leap here. And I can't remember, Shawn, did I call you or did I email you back and say, hey, you want to have a chat on the phone? I don't recall exactly what happened, but I reached back out, you responded, we connected, and it was that common interest item of the Go Giver. And you were right about basically the 5 laws of stratospheric success, which I think are one of the keys to being successful in any business. Yeah, right here on my vision board is those 5 laws, and I also have them in my office. And
Nice.
so out of hundreds of emails, thousands throughout the year, every once in a while you get one that doesn't need to go to the delete or unsubscribe or whatever bin. And that's what part of, I think, just noticing things like that. And that's from an Andy Andrews book, which I can't remember the name of. He called himself a noticer. And I think that's one of my strengths is just picking up on things, noticing them.
Interesting. Yeah, and I want to touch on the marketing aspect for a second because I feel like this is going to speak to agents. You just mentioned, and I would venture to say we get 100 emails a day that are spam. Somebody's trying to sell us something, pitch us something, but within that, I would say a large portion, and you can tell me how accurate this is, but a large portion are agents who, hey, I have this property in Wichita and we're open this weekend. And you're like, great, never will have a client there. Maybe I will. I don't have one now. And I can care less that you have an open house this weekend. There's no way I'm flying there. And so there's a mismatch, there's a market to message mismatch, and there's zero value. So what do? Unsubscribe, never talk to that person again. That's the worst thing that can happen to an email. And I think it's so important, it's crucially important to whatever you're sending a buyer, a seller, an agent, whoever it may be, there has to be a value to them, not of you, not to you. It's not your gain selling the property. That's not important to them. In figuring out what is that core component that's important. And then once you have that connection, this really cool, amazing things happen after that. Hey, real estate pros, be honest. You know you should be using video, but maybe you feel awkward, don't have the time, or just aren't seeing the results. This is where Kim Rittberg's Video Bootcamp comes in. This live coaching program helps agents create high quality videos quickly and confidently, resulting in leads and clients. Her students have seen results. One landed 3 new clients directly from social media, and others brought in millions of dollars in closed sales. Spots are limited, and to apply now, follow the link in the description below.
I can sum that up in one word, I think,
Um,
and then extrapolate on it from there.
yeah,
And
please.
and it's a word I discovered a couple years ago. I'll have been a realtor for 10 years this coming May, so learned quite a bit in these 10 years. And the word is relatable. And as a ninja, a Buffini person, a working by relationship person, a lot of us do words of the year, etc. So like as a primary focus for your goal. And relatable for me is a word for life, because if it isn't relatable, it isn't typically of value. Might be interesting,
Yeah.
but the emails you're describing are not relatable. They're noise. So here's the little nuanced difference for you.
Mm.
And it's a little selfish on my part because I do use it as a tool to put myself in front of said agents.
Hmm.
I typically don't respond to agents that send me their open house in Nebraska or Florida, if I don't know them. However, if they're an agent in my sphere, in my book that I know personally, I've met them, they know me, etc.
Yeah.
Um, I every 6, 7, 8 weeks, like I keep them in I don't unsubscribe. I keep
Hmm.
them, and every so often I'll just respond to that email, which even though it doesn't relate to me, I it's an opportunity to insert yourself in front of them to stay top of mind. And so, just one quick sentence because everybody's busy, like, "Hey, Shawn, great listing. Hope you're doing well. Cheers, comma Scott."
Mm.
And it took 20 seconds and you've just a little tiny touch. And I think in a world of information and constant connection, is how are you going to stay top of mind with people
Yeah.
through multiple channels, whether it's email, phone call, snail mail, social media, text? There's no right answer here. I think it's a combination of all of those. So you kind of hit people sporadically from different points of contact, so it isn't stale. Sending an email every single week, that that is, in my opinion, a delete gets noise. It's noise that
Yeah.
people are going to stop looking at because, like, oh, great, another email from Scott, delete. So for
Right.
me, for sending an email to somebody, it needs to be relatable and it has to have value, and less is more. Like for me,
Yeah.
it's a quarterly system.
Yeah.
And for me, everything is systems and being consistent at what you think is working or is working.
I completely agree. Yeah, and being able to your point earlier, notice if like take inventory. Is this working? Good. Let's do more of that. Is it not working? Let's figure out why it's not working or do less of it. But I really appreciate your point that you made is there has to be some sort of relationship first. Like there has to, a blind email that doesn't provide value and that creates noise is the one that gets deleted. But if there's I completely agree. I have friends who are agents in LA. Actually, one of them just sent me a property today. It's an $8 million property. That's just cool to look at. And so now
Yeah.
I'm super stoked for him. He's like, hey, man, check this out. I just won this listing. And now it's a different conversation. It's like, dude, congratulations. That's incredible. I'm so happy for you. Completely different. We have a different flow with each other. But if it just blindly came in, I'd be like, okay, delete.
Right. Right. And your email to me, it was cold, but it was relatable
Yeah.
and it resonated. So it hit a metric that worked.
Yeah. I mean, and selfishly and very transparently, this podcast is specifically targeted to real estate agents to have these amazing conversations with incredible realtors across the nation, figuring out what they're doing, and thus providing a value to them so they can, if somebody can listen to this and just get one little idea and change the way they're doing something 1% better, their entire production is going to change. And that's my whole goal with all of this. And what does that do for me? Well, it helps keep me, I'm able to present something of value so I can then stay top of mind and just be present with them while helping facilitate this other thing. And so it's not dissimilar of the way we're present with a new homeowner. And you're in Tahoe, they get their first snowstorm. Hey, not
Mhm.
sure if you're, or there's a storm coming, not sure if you're prepared, but here's a great plow company that I've used for years. They can come and take care of, your driveway and sidewalks.
Sure. I call those gold nuggets.
Yeah.
Those little like if like what you're saying, if somebody pulls one piece of information out of this podcast that is helpful for their business or their life, that to me is a success. And on the flip side, if I read a book and pull at least one gold nugget out of it, that's great. Or I go to a in-person networking event and have a relationship take my career a whole different direction, all because I met one person and it just pushed me somewhere that I never knew existed.
Yeah.
And it's not all about receiving these gold nuggets. The value is also in making sure you're giving them, and when you're giving them, it's usually not on purpose. It's just by you being you and sharing your information you have. And when you're building a network of agent to agent relationships outside of your market, it's really easy to share and give. And one of my many, many mantras is give without expectation, because it's very genuine.
I agree. One of my absolute favorite quotes from Tony Robbins is relationships aren't a place to go and get something, they're a place to go and give something. And it
Agreed.
completely reframes the way we're approaching it. And I also think too, what are your expectations? Like if you're going with the expectation of getting a sale or making a transaction, that's going to frame the way you're thinking about it in the conversations you have. But if you think, how can I be of service? How can I help this person? What do they need? Who do they need me to show up as? And what do they need from me? It completely reframes everything you're going to be sharing with them from that point forward.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. It's just, it's a great way to, it's a great mindset and a way to present and, just live your life both personally and professionally with that coming from abundance and giving mindset.
Yeah. The abundance part is really hard, especially when you're a brand new agent starting out and I don't, I'm thinking of how to say this because you feel as if you're in a place of scarcity, but you have to present as a place of abundance. And it's a very conscious challenge that you have to work through.
I agree. And I think uh, for that, coming from abundance mindset when you are new in any career, not
Yeah.
just real estate, because at some point we're all new, right? When you make that leap into a new career, for real estate, for me, third career, like I was new, and I was new in May of 2015. Brand new license, never sold a house, never done a deal, but I needed to figure out how to present that abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes from confidence
Mm.
and self-esteem, not arrogance, just believing in yourself. And for me, entering real estate, I feel that part of my past, a business degree with strategic management emphasis, long-term planning, and then history in sales and people management, really, really kind of helped me enter real estate at the age of 43 years old with
Mm.
a lot of diverse background that were going to be the building blocks for a successful business and working with people.
I'm on the same page. The one thing that I really had to remind myself, I started in this business when I was just shy of 40, and I had to remind myself I'm new to this thing, but I'm not new at life. And I've had a lot of experiences up to this point, and I can bring all of those with me. And that gave me a level of confidence because I had north of 20 years of sales experience. And so it was like, okay, I'm bringing a lot of experience in this category to it. I understand marketing. I've done campaigns. And
Mhm.
so I relied on those things to give me the confidence in the areas where I didn't have experience, so I didn't have confidence in those areas. But I do like your point of uh, monitoring that it doesn't flip to the side of arrogant because that kills the ability to learn.
Agreed, 100%.
I do want to talk about your vision board because that is part of what got this conversation started because you had on the vision board some of the key elements from the Go Giver. Um, in like talk to us. Everybody talks about vision boards, but I wanted to hear your approach and your style and what it does for you
Sure. There
spiritually.
is no wrong vision board. It because it's personal and
Right.
it's about your vision and what it means to you. And I, for one, I can dive into this a little bit. I didn't want my vision board to be just about things, stuff,
Mm.
material assets, because at the end of the day, it's just stuff. It's fun, but it's just stuff. And it gets old and gets replaced. So for me, I tried to do a vision board that I'm going to try to make sure I talk into the microphone as well. Uh, Family, which is super, super important to me.
Mhm.
Also, relationships, uh, the some business stuff, the stratospheric success,
Mhm.
some ninja stuff here and here, health, men's health, and basically just some inspirational words and just an kind of an all inclusive. For me, like I want to be healthy. I love my family. I love
Yeah.
my friends and I love my work. I love pleasing people. I love helping people. I also love stuff, and I just want to make sure it's a very balanced,
Yeah.
vision of who I am as a person, who I want to present to the world, and who I want to be that I strive for daily. And so by having this, it's just a general reminder. And the stuff part, I think part of it is the fun that you potentially get as a reward from
Mhm.
helping people and success with work. Um, and that for me, like same thing with like a paycheck. For me, a paycheck is not a goal. It never has been. A paycheck for me, that's a result.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
what I mean by that, and anytime I meet new clients, buyer or seller, I make sure they understand very succinctly that, hey, I am here to serve if there's a need. And my business model is based on, at a bare minimum, meeting your expectations and goals. I would prefer to exceed your expectations and goals, because if I do one of those two things, a paycheck magically appears as a result of that behavior. And that result helps me support my wife and family
Yeah.
and sons, and what's part of what makes this world go round. So, and when you articulate that to the client, especially new client, and you can almost see the tension in their shoulders drop, like a
Yeah.
sigh of relief, like, oh my goodness, this guy's on our side. Like, for he's not here for the paycheck, he's here for us. And if I can deliver that message, that really helps, level up the trust and the confidence in the beginning of a new relationship.
Yeah. It really it reframes what they're potentially thinking. And I say similar things in different ways, but letting them know that I'm on their schedule and not on mine, meaning similar to what you're saying, I'm not forcing you into a property. When the right property presents and you fall in love with it, then I'll help facilitate that. You're right. There's when that's clearly articulated, usually in the early, very beginning of that relationship, you literally watch their shoulders settle and
Mhm.
just like energetically, they're like, okay, like you are on my side.
Right. It's like they've almost checked a box mentally.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I say, look, there's never ever going to be pressure from me to buy or sell a home, especially because for me, it's a little different animal being in a second, third, fourth, fifth home market.
Yeah.
Because last time I checked, nobody needs a second home or a third one or a fourth one. We just need one.
Yeah.
So I'm servicing most of the time a want, not a need. And so
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a different, I would say, kind of anxiety, pressure feeling from the clients, is the fact that it is a want, and you're trying to help them fulfill that want. And a lot of times, one day or one week or one year, the want sounds good, but sometimes life changes.
Yep.
Job transfer to the East Coast from California, kids getting married and moving, to the Midwest, and then all of a sudden that want need has pivoted. And I just want to make sure the clients know, like, look, if we work together a week, a month, a year, 2 years, and all of a sudden life pivots and nothing ever happens, that's okay. Like, that's part of the deal I signed up for.
Yeah.
And it falls back to, I'm only here to serve if there's a need. And if, your life changes, hey, it's all good. Like, let's
Yeah.
still be friends. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah. I mean, when you're dealing with people who it's an option to purchase, there's no pressure to purchase, and they're a high net worth, they're usually pretty highly educated as well. They want advisors, not salespeople. And
Correct.
I feel when they feel that pressure is relieved it just changes the dynamic. And the only thing I always say to them is just communicate with me. Like I'm going to run as fast as you, and I'll pace whatever pace you're pacing. And so if you decide to put this down or stop it, just communicate that with me so we're on the same page from beginning to end. And everybody's always super responsive to that, because I think that's a fatal flaw with most people is they don't communicate, and it's refreshing when somebody does want to communicate.
It's interesting. When you said ultra high net worth in relationship to, purchasing a lifestyle property versus a necessity property,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've run into this, and I think it's worth touching on,
Yeah.
is sometimes clients, buyers, sellers will come across your desk and they'll have already checked you out online, and they'll say things like, "Oh, it looks like you only do luxury. I'm not really sure if we're worth your time." And it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute. What do you mean? Well, we only have $750,000 to spend, or $900,000. And it looks like, you sell more homes that are up in this range. And I just say, hey, look, number one, you already have a home, correct? Yes. So you're already wealthy because you're looking at buying another one. And so even though, you think that it's a smaller, end home, the reality of it is, whether it's $900,000 or $9 million or $90 million, that is that person's luxury. And
Yeah.
that is at 900 grand, you only have an extra $900,000 to
Air
spend on a
quotes
home
only. That's a lot.
that's a want. It's a want. And
Yeah.
so like that is your luxury. And I'm going to treat you like the 9 million, $90 million client, because that is your dream. That is your luxury that I'm here to help you achieve if you truly indeed want it.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, that loops back to what you shared at the very beginning of process. It's the same systems and process to help facilitate a $9 million purchase as it is a $900,000 purchase, meaning they're going to receive the same level of expertise, the same checkpoints, the same thresholds, the same checks and balances to ensure that they have a superior experience. And I always say to my clients is I don't choose people to work with based on their price point. I choose them on their values, and I want to make sure that we're just going to be a good fit for working together. And if not, I'm happy to introduce you to the agent I feel would be a better fit for you and your needs, because I want to have you I want my client to have a great experience, and I want to have a great experience. And I know, and I've had enough life experiences to know if the relationship's bad in the beginning, the relationship's going to be bad in the middle, and it's going to be horrible at the end. And I want to help mitigate that too.
Right. And I think, yeah, the interview should go both ways. The clients interviewing us, and us, interviewing the clients, and just kind of going with your gut on the read that you have with these folks, and are they a good fit for you and your personality? And if you feel they're not, the smartest play is to, like you said, you know, make a change so that there is that right fit, in the rare instance that does happen, because not everybody is compatible. And that is one of the things that I think helps me get through some disappointments. I mean, I feel the real estate industry, if anybody listening is old enough for the Winter Olympics commercial that comes on every 4 years, and they talk about the thrill of victory, and it's the three on the podium with the medals, arms up, and then there's the agony of defeat, and that is the ski jumper sliding off the big jump and crashing. And as a realtor, I experience both of those emotions almost daily. Um, so,
Yeah,
like,
man, we do.
and sometimes multiple times per day in the busy season in Tahoe, like you're up and down on the roller coaster of thrill of victory and agony of defeat, all in the same day. So I
Dude,
mean,
it's so true.
it's never boring.
No, and I think that's the other really challenging part from being in that seat as an agent is getting back to your balance point. So when you talk to that client, you can calmly present the information so they can form a decision as to how they want to proceed. And I've been on those deals where the agent, the escrow officer, the lender are all crazy frantic, creating this frantic energy for a client who's trying to make a financially healthy decision. And it's awful.
That's when I like to break out my late night DJ voice, when you just talk a little quieter, a little
Mhm.
slower, a little softer. Say, hey, not to worry. I got this. These are the options. Let's walk through them. And just kind of like bring it down a level when it gets frantic like that.
It's so, recently we got a puppy, and I've been doing a whole bunch of research on how to train a dog. And one of my big takeaways is the dog will mirror your energy. And so if you're frantic, they're frantic. You're anxious, they're anxious. And so like that's leadership, is figuring out again, who do I need to show up for them? Who do I need to be for them in this moment? And
Absolutely.
that's like next level. I think it's great that you've tapped into that. And I'm sure that comes from all your years of working retail and being in that space. And
Yeah, just diffusing situations.
that's what it
Um,
is.
and a lot of times I've learned from past experience is, um, by if things do start to go a little sideways on certain things, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter. What I found is a lot of times asking the question versus providing the solution to
Mhm.
the aggrieved party, or that somebody feels like they need something, is by asking the question, sometimes they'll ask for far less than you're willing to give.
It's
And
true.
I learned that in the ski industry with people's rentals that have gone awry and ruined their day, whatever. And versus just giving them something, and say, what would make this right? How do I bring joy back to your vacation? And they would tell me,
Such a
and I
good
would just say,
question.
done. And now they were given time of possession. They were put in charge.
Mhm.
They told me what would make it right. And 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to go a lot farther to make it right.
Yeah.
But they've been satisfied. And sometimes, if they're really great people, I'll even give them more than they ask for, just because I know I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, yeah, when somebody like is gracious. And yeah, I've done the same thing in retail of like, you're like, let me just hook you up. Like, I know this was a huge inconvenience. Let me just take care of you.
Right? It
And
falls
then,
into the. Oh, sorry.
and I was going to say, then you have a loyal fan for life. Like
Exactly.
they'll
Creating
always
raving
come back.
fan, yeah, creating raving fans. It's 80% more cost effective to retain a current client than to try to find a new one,
Yep.
which is why the working by relationship business model is so much more not just successful, I think, than transactional relationships, but it's so much more rewarding. When you meet
Mhm.
people through third party validation, relationship, you already have this built in level of trust. There's a lot of people with skin in the game versus just somebody meeting you cold that knows nothing about you. That's a much bigger mountain to climb, out of the gate.
I completely agree. I mean, it's like meeting a life partner, like randomly fabricating a conversation out of thin air in a brief meeting, and they have zero context of you, is much, much harder than an introduction from their best friend, period.
Right. It's because there you trust the friend, there's that warm handoff,
That's it.
and it really helps kind of jumpstart the relationship.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about your vision board. I saw a 65 Mustang on there.
Yeah,
When you buying it?
I don't know. As soon as I have enough garage space, I think.
Can
Yeah,
never
the
have enough.
65 Mustang, or 66 fastback convertible. That's been a dream for quite some time. I'm a car guy, and as popular unpopular as this may sound, if it consumes fossil fuels, I probably enjoy it. I enjoy I enjoy riding Harley Davidsons. My family and I were big on boating in Tahoe, boat camping,
Right.
and the if I was to live another life, I wish I was like probably in my 20s, in the late 60s.
Oh, me
Um,
too.
just that whole kind of like such a slower pace of life can compare today. And just for me, for vehicles back then, vehicles had style, and
Yeah.
they were an extension of who you are, your personality. Where now, I mean, vehicles can still convey that message today. However, you know, more often than not, they're just widgets,
Yeah.
right? They're A to B. That they're a tool to get somewhere, not necessarily an extension of who you are.
Indeed.
And everybody's different, and that's okay. And if you just need a tool to get you from A to B, no problem. But I like, my treat to myself was I bought an Audi S6. It was kind of like a sleeper sports car,
Yeah.
4 doors. I can take clients out in it. And if you know what it is, you know what it is. And if you don't, it just looks like an old man sedan. And so like that's kind of like fly under the radar. That's my, until I get to this part where, I have the garage space for, some more toys that are seasonal toys here in Tahoe with the snow. Even though I did see somebody driving their convertible Mustang in the rain yesterday between Incline Village and Tahoe City, and I was like, wow.
Enjoy it.
Um, well, and then I thought, you know what? Maybe their tops. I started to get a little judgy, but I caught myself, and I said, you know what, Scott? Maybe the top's broken, and they can't afford to fix it, and they just need to get somewhere. Like it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
so that's come with wisdom and age. Is
Yeah.
then my knee jerk reaction versus my like kind of like more like respectful giving, like, hey, maybe this is, or maybe they enjoy the rain, and it's an opportunity.
Well, convertibles, as long as you're moving forward, the rain doesn't actually come in.
Right, right.
As long as you're moving. So when I was 18 years old, I hunted down a 65 fastback and bought it. And when I moved to California, I actually sold it to my mom. And it's been in pieces for since then. And it's sitting in a warehouse right now. And I recently bought it back and I'm in the process of rebuilding it.
Oh, awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those cars. Man, the 60s just for muscle cars was like a whole different racket. 60s, 70s is early 70s, I should say.
Yeah,
Then they fell apart.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's funny too on the vision boards, the things, those things, rarely is it, oh, so I can just go drive by myself. It's like I have two boys. It's like, oh, I would love to take them to a track day. I would love to hang out with them and, cruise up the coast. And it's then this thing that gives you an extension of the relationship because you're then having this other really amazing experience through that thing that you worked really hard to achieve. Like you said with the boat, you didn't say, I'd love to go out by myself and hang out on the boat. It was, we get to go camping on it overnight. We get, it's like this whole different we experience that comes about. And I also think that's just it's almost like a misconception of money. It's like people say it's the root of all evil, but it's also the vehicle that puts the roof over your head and buys the food for Thanksgiving that brings the entire family together so you can all hang out and be comfortable and warm and have this place to regroup and connect.
Right. I feel that, it's kind of carving out, um, in life, what are the things that bring you joy? Family, friends, helping people, material stuff, where you live, like, and there's no wrong answer here because it's a personal one. And that's something that I know I wouldn't say I've struggled with, but there were definitely times in my life when I struggled with like finding joy, finding like happiness, like what, like when you feel like you work, caught in a rut. And this is for me, this is pre-real estate, just feeling like, I feel like I'm on the treadmill here. And like, am I happy with my place on the treadmill? Because joy is about, joy and happiness, similar but different.
Mm,
Being happy is one thing, but finding joy, it sometimes can be challenging.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's similar to gratitude fits in with those words as well. And it's sometimes you just have to slow down and remind yourself. Let's change subjects a little bit
Sure.
because you are in a market where people tend to go to, they go visit, they go hang out for the summer, they spend, it's their second home location. And so you had to really strategically, one, figure out where are they coming from, and then who are the connectors, i.e., the agents. And then, as we talked about, now you are left with this responsibility of fabricating a relationship out of thin air to these agents who are potentially going to introduce you to the right people moving to that area. How did you approach that?
The which part? The
The whole that the,
okay.
the whole swath of realizing that you're in this market that gets fed seasonally
Okay.
and approaching how deciding where I'm going to go after the agents and then how you're going to actually build these symbiotic relationships.
Okay. Yeah. So I understand what you're asking. So I think this all starts for me long before real estate. My
Mm.
family, we bought a vacant lot in 1976, built a single family home in Dollar Point that was done in 1978. And we still own that home today, 47 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I grew
Very
up in
cool.
the San Francisco Bay Area. And I say we pretty loosely because in 1978 I was 7, so we built a house. I was more along for the ride than anything.
Yeah.
But what I think that does and has done for me as a real estate professional is I've lived a lifetime of San Francisco Bay Area to Tahoe connection.
Mm.
And I feel that because I've lived that connection, it gives me an edge over other realtors for most likely knowing what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve because I've lived it. I've done it my whole
Yeah.
life. And we had a traditional family vacation, first 2 weeks of August every year for 47 years, my mom's whole side of the family. And when we started, it was 2468. It was 10 of us. Now it's about 37. Same
Jeez.
house. They did buy another house, but part of that journey taught me that there is a heavy Bay Area to Tahoe connection, and I feel I even as a kid we had this big poster in our cabin that said, Lake Tahoe year round playground, and it showed like people
Mm.
water skiing and snow skiing, and it was like kind of cartoonish, and it really is. And so when I got my start in real estate, I I was led by my CEO at the time, Mark McLaughlin. He had this
Mm.
program with Pacific Union called Come and Get It. And he came to Tahoe where we had Pacific Union had one satellite office in Tahoe. And he basically came up and told all 17 of us Pacific Union Tahoe agents, come to the Bay Area, get to know our agents, which at the time was about 850, and you will be successful. And I was a brand new agent. And I was like, what else am I doing? So, and I'm from the Bay Area. I have college friends in the East Bay and my whole mom's side in the peninsula from San
Smart.
Francisco, San Jose, everywhere in between. And so I did. I hopped in the car religiously for 4 years and I got to know San Francisco Bay Area agents. While that was going on, I went to my title company and I figured out early on, hey, wherever these owners' property taxes are and these buyers' property taxes are mailed, it's probably where they live. And what I found through that information is that approximately 58% of Lake Tahoe buyers and sellers all live in the 9 San Francisco Bay Area counties, and 92% live in California. 92%. So 60% of my target is in the San Francisco Bay Area for networking, building relationships, and 92% is California. And so talk about a critical piece of information of knowing where to go.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I did. And then I extrapolated it out by county. And of that 58%, about 18 and a half, 19% of that were in Santa Clara County, and the other 19, 18 and a half were in Contra Costa. And then that doesn't mean, San Francisco at like 14, Marin at 11, San Mateo, whatever, all adding up to 100%. But it kind of gave me like Napa, 4%. Probably won't start there because only 4%. And
Right.
Napa is kind of like another second home market, another want property. Not all of them, but similar. And so
True.
that really
True.
helped me propel and give me direction for how I wanted to, network and build relationships. Um, and so I also did it through Buffini and Ninja,
Hmm.
on a more like national level as well. And I don't want people to think that that means that I think that only agents in the San Francisco Bay Area and California are valuable or are most likely to refer. I mean, technically they are most likely to refer, but I feel that basically we all have value equally, no matter
Hmm.
where you
Hmm.
live. I mean, if you're an
Agreed.
agent in New York or Florida or Oklahoma, like I just like the $900,000 and the $9 million and $90 million client, you give everybody the $9 million, $90 million service
Yeah.
and interest level. And I have a great example for that, because even though the math says that San Francisco Bay Area and California is where the Lake Tahoe business comes from,
Hmm. Hmm.
I had a Buffini agent in Oregon reach out to a Buffini agent in Texas saying, "Hey, I need a Tahoe agent." So Oregon reaches out to Texas. Texas tells Oregon Scott Willers and referred. And so that's kind of why that is, I think, a perfect example of why basically we all have value equally. We all have, that relational value. And because of my relationship with the Texas agent, she knew me in person multiple times,
Hmm.
and she didn't hesitate to drop my name. And that's what I mean by the working by relationship, the warm introduction, the third party validation. I honestly can't imagine doing business any other way. It is so fulfilling and so much more rewarding working because you have multiple relationships. It's not just the client, it's also your agent peer. And,
Yeah.
just nurturing that relationship on both a personal and professional level, it really, really, for me, this is a crazy business. It is a roller coaster, just like the thrill of victory and agony of defeat. Um,
It's a
but by
ride.
having a peer network that understands the crazy, it brings a sense of normalcy to
Yeah.
what we do, to what we do,
It
because we don't
does.
have to we don't have to explain what we do. They know, they've experienced the same things over and over, and so it creates
Yeah.
a very familial experience for me.
Really, really smart. You remind me of Patrick Brown, who I recently had on the show. I think I may misquote this, but I think in 3 years he closed 104 referrals,
That's awesome.
which is insane. Which is it's like similar to you. It was referrals, and the bulk of those were agent relationships. And I it's such an incredibly important thing, and I really appreciate what you did was step back first and then say, well, where are they actually coming from? Um, I was recently on a podcast and was asked about all my past guests, and I said a line, which was, they are able to find where their passion meets productivity. And that's, it's like you had this area that you already knew, and it happened to line up perfectly with the same path as your client base, and thus is your productivity. And it's so good. It's such a good evaluation. To nurture those relationships, you mentioned showing up to the Bay Area, driving down here frequently. What specifically did you do?
So a handful of things. In the beginning, it started off as going to sales meetings
Mm-hmm.
with in brand with Pacific Union, and basically making a Tahoe presentation. And it wasn't a Tahoe presentation about the numbers or the stats or the average sales price or anything like that. For me, it was more about showing the agents the math on the fact that the short version is basically my message was, and I would show them to this visually on a Bay Area map by the numbers and throw it up on the big screen so they could all see it and say, look, it's not a matter of if your clients are buying and selling in Tahoe. They are. Here's the math on the big screen
Great
for the
point.
past 10 years. 3,000 people and there have been 3,000 sides in Santa Clara County in 10 years. That's 300 a year, right? So it might not happen this year. It might not happen next year, but it is going to happen when your clients buy or sell in Tahoe. And I'm just here to make sure you get paid and, have a referral, have somebody somebody you can trust. And if you already have a Tahoe agent, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not here to step on anybody's toes, and and I would say, look, this applies to Palm Springs, Hawaii, Carmel. There's anywhere there's a Aspen, you should have a network of agents that you know and trust. And that was kind of part of my gold nugget give back, is anybody who hadn't had the light bulb moment for working by referral, working by relationship, have that happen. And then we would also do small format events in these small format events, 200-300 agents, those I felt were could be far more valuable than the sales meetings, because 9 times out of 10 people, agents, myself included, at sales meetings, we're there because, we want to support, the team, our sales manager. But we usually always have something going on in the background in our brain of getting back to work. But when you go to these small format and large format networking events, we've already carved out the time for this event. We've put our business on hold, and I feel like people are far more receptive to doing that. And then once you kind of get to know people, my main thing was, how am I going to be remembered in a sea of agents?
Yeah.
Sales meeting is just me as one person, but when you go to events, whether they're 300 people or 3,000 people, how are you going to be remembered? And for me, it's all about follow-up via email, snail mail, and then like a little token gift. So you kind of have multiple points of contact after the event has come and gone, and you are the only or one of the few agents that continues to follow up long after the event is over.
So smart. A trick that Lindsay Nurin, who's an Austin agent, that she shared with me, and I so deeply appreciate it. What she does is she plans on going to the event, and then she figures out which agents are going and are in the feeder market that she wants to build a relationship, and will message them on Instagram, because people will usually post, "Hey, go into this event." And then she can search the tag. And then she says, "Hey, I see you're going to the event. I would love to meet you in person." And so, similar to what you're saying about a warm lead, she's creating a warm opportunity to then meet that person at the event. And so it doubles down the time spent that we're investing to be at these places.
Yeah, a point of contact before the event. And Lindsay's amazing. She is an absolute dynamo.
She is. It's interesting. We have an inner circle group, and it's about 30-40 agents nationally. And it's cool because one part of it is almost like pure coaching, and Lindsay's in it. But then the other big component is the referrals. And she and a few other agents who just crush it at these networking events are going to be giving a talk to that group about how to just fully optimize those sessions. And so, I mean, I think in this business, from the abundance perspective, there's opportunities all around us. And you just have to your point, lift your head up, make observations, see what the natural patterns are, and then figure out how you can tap into that natural pattern. The river's running. You just have to figure out what directions it's moving and where you want to get in. And then it's going to carry you the rest of the way. You just have to do that initial work up front.
Right. And, if anybody listening has anxiety about these networking events, whether it's, 200 people or 2,000 people, because I did have an agent approach me who had never been to an event before. And she was like, "Scott, I'm super overwhelmed. I have a lot of anxiety over this." And I said to her, "Hey, just think of this as Burning Man for realtors." And what I mean by that is, and for anybody that's been to Burning Man, and even if you haven't, if you go there for 5 days or 7 days or 10 days, even if you stayed awake for 24 hours a day, the entire time, you cannot meet everybody, see it all, do it all. And so if you enter with the mindset of, I'm going to be where I'm going to be, I'm going to meet who I'm going to meet, and that's the way it's supposed to happen.
Mhm.
Because you don't try to like make sure you are at every single thing, and
Great point.
don't leave something good just so you can get to the next thing. So it's just more of a go with the flow,
Yeah.
because these events can be overwhelming, when there's just so much going on and you feel torn, like, where do I go, what do I do?
Yeah.
And that's the Burning Man for realtor effect, is just
It's a
take
great
a
point.
step back and just go with the flow, and just make the most of wherever you are. And that's where you're going to be successful, I think.
I completely agree. I mean, and you never know who you're going to bump into and what that's going to yield. Like you just, yeah, I think going with the flow is such a great way to do it. And I think even before that is setting your own expectations of, I'm going to look for one nugget. I'm going to sit in these different seminars and different talks. And I'm going to look for that one nugget that I can adjust my business 1%. And if I can meet one really great person per day, per half day, whatever it is for your data point, that's enough. I think those agents, and no, I'm not. This is my opinion of my experience. Is those ones who run around and just give and take business cards? It's not. It's just forgettable. It's you want to
Yeah,
have that.
deeper, not broader.
Yeah, that's where that's my approach too. Like for you and I'd rather sit with you for an hour on this podcast than for us to have exchanged, one email and that was it. I mean, I too, I can't remember if it was a call or an email first, but I do remember I was recording that day for Compass Academy. I was doing a whole session, which I actually learned a lot and applied from all these conversations with agents. And then I hopped in my car and we had this really great conversation, to the point where I was almost late to my next appointment. And I was like, listen, like, got to have you on the podcast. I really want to unpack all of this. And so if it was just a quick text, that experience, that new other thing may not have happened. And so
Exactly.
I think looking for those, I don't know if it was a Buffini or a Tom Ferry, but it was look for the opportunity within the opportunity. And that slows you down to kind of observe what else is happening here.
Right. I think, and I have to credit my wife for this. Sometimes you need to just be,
Yeah. Oh,
like,
so hard.
slow it down and just be. Don't, because so many times we are we're pseudo in the moment, but we're already thinking about the next moment,
Mhm.
and versus just taking a step back and really kind of entrenching yourself in the now. It's kind of like, it's listening for the sake of listening versus listening to respond.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us just listen to respond when we should just be listening to make sure we hear,
Yeah.
the message being conveyed. And I think that comes with time and tenure of, and for me, it was having it pointed out mainly from my wife, like, hey, can you just listen to me and just be, versus formulating your response, while I'm still delivering the message. And so that was a super, super helpful learning curve, to mentally retrain your brain to take a step back and make sure you're listening so that they're heard, versus listening so that you can respond.
Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
I have not.
It's really good for starters, but there's a great scene where Ted Lasso is sitting with the owner of the team who's a female, and there's another woman, and they're kvetching about something. And Ted Lasso kind of walks in and he's like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "It's girl talk." And then he's like, "Oh, okay." And then basically she gives him a summary of what girl talk is. It's like you don't problem solve, you don't offer a solution, you're just listening. And it's great. So Cielo and I will be talking, and she'll tell me about her day, and I immediately go into, okay, I got this. I'll problem solve it for you. And she's like, no, no, this is girl talk. And I'm like, oh, okay, that just means shut up. Just
Yeah, no,
listen and nod.
I have a version of that too, and it's literally kind of come down to the point because by default, I'm a solver. You know,
That's men in general is a
so
default setting.
so if we're gonna blanket statement it and we're all solvers, I mean, I've literally gotten to the point with my amazing wife Sharon where she'll be saying something to me, and I'll stop for a second and say, "Am I listening or am I solving?" Because I just want to make sure I am clear on what the expectation is, because I value what you're saying, and I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, because my default is to solve everything you say
Yeah.
to fix it. And if you don't want me to fix it, if you just want to be heard, that's another brain retraining that I'm still working on.
And that goes back to your point earlier about that person who at the ski shop had a horrible day because something went awry. And that is a reframe of like, I'm not going to solve it. I'm going to just volley it to you. And that's a different, similar, but different of they just really genuinely, when people sometimes are pissed, they just want to be pissed. And more importantly, they just want to be heard. And
Yeah, absolutely.
once they get it off their chest, and then you volley, well, how can I make this right? And sometimes it's just, I just wanted you to know this so you can change the way you're doing things. And you're like, heard, we'll implement something immediately. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, exactly. Communication is typically the cause and solution for almost everything. Communication or lack thereof, you know, is so important.
yeah. Man, this was a great chat, and I really genuinely I appreciate your time. I feel like there's so many just good little helpful reminders peppered throughout this whole conversation. So thank you. I genuinely appreciate it.
No, likewise, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really believe everything happens for a reason, even if you don't know why at the time, because you just don't know what door may open every time you take a meeting, and where this journey in life may take us. And
So true.
it's really, really a pleasure. Thank you.
And that's a wrap.